Kevin?
Good morning, Sully.
What's going on, bud?
Hey, we're just kind of, we're getting warmed up for this afternoon's Cal final, and then we get to actually, close the book on the regular season and get ready for the tournament starting on Monday. So it's a good time to be a basketball fan.
You coming down to the Cal final?
Now, what kind of question is that?
Hey, I don't know, man. You're all about those Cherry Hill area teams,
No. See, you're throwing out. See, this is part of the problem that people have. People fail to realize that the Courier-Post is South Jersey's newspaper. It has been for well over 100 years. Probably, I don't know, way more than 100. And if it's a big event in South Jersey, a major event of significance, which the Cal final obviously today is, then if resources are available, we will attend, and therefore I'm there.
Well, the Courier-Post reign might be coming to an end in a couple of years. Glory Days taking over, buddy.
Oh, Glory Days. Well, Glory Days is doing. I'm sure it's doing okay.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Doing okay. So so we're getting ready for some basketball. It's going to be the Stockton will have a nice little. I'm sure they'll have a nice crowd today for both games, and tough to beat a team 3 times, but I think St. Augustine obviously is playing pretty well. They've kind of regrouped from I wouldn't even call it a lull, really. I mean, just a little bump in the road there when they had those games against Camden and St. Anthony and such. But I think they got everything together, and I really would rather see. I'm really interested in seeing if how Atlantic City kind of responds today to the fact that they've lost to them twice now, and this is obviously a big game that you want to win going into the tournament. So, I'm interested in seeing how Atlantic City responds and how they play today, and whether they can regroup from the loss that they had to the Prep earlier, and the last time they played, and see how they react. So it's going to be it'll be a good day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Atlantic City tries to defend that team, because you shut down Mutz and boom, Hargis kills you. You shut down Hargis, Kennedy kills you. So they have so much talent there. It's kind of hard to pick your poison. Yeah,
and I had mentioned it on Twitter. I guess it was when Austin Kennedy got his 1,000th point the other night, and I think there's a kid right there who exemplifies what it means to be a program player. A kid who came through, made his way through St. Augustine. Had to play behind some decent guards, but really kind of broke through. I remember when he broke through as a sophomore a little bit, and I really think he has emerged as a player that a lot of people really still do not know about. And he's a kid he's a very, very good high school basketball player, and he's the kind of kid that he'll go play somewhere. He'll get a nice education. He'll go play basketball somewhere, and then get a job and move on with like the most of us. But I think he's a kid who's very, very underrated, and I think he's probably, while Justin Mutz is certainly the focal point, I think, of that basketball team, I think Austin Kennedy is the key to that basketball team, because he really makes them go.
I tell you what, man, if I'm starting a high school basketball game, I want that kid on my team.
He's solid. Not only is he solid, not that he hasn't made mistakes, because obviously he has, and all kids, no one is out there who's a perfect player, but he knows the system. He knows what has to be done. Does he get crazy at times? Well, maybe sometimes, but I think everybody does. But he's he keeps that team running, and he knows what's expected. And he's a very gutty player. I think some players, you look at him and they just kind of play, and I think Austin Kennedy might be one of those kind of players who maybe plays with a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, he strikes me as one of those kids who he comes out there to beat you. It doesn't matter if he gets 2 points or 20 or 7 assists or none. Whatever it takes to get that W, he's going to do it. And then that's the kind of kid you love to have on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of hit it right on the head. It doesn't matter. Points are not going to. He scored 1,000 points, and that's an awful lot. But I think a lot of people would probably are probably even amazed that he scored 1,000 points. Considering the talent that team has had, and
right.
Usually who ends up being the large scorers on that team. So he's had a nice career, a nice 4-year run, and obviously he'd like to cap it off with not only a win today, but repeat that state championship.
Talking with Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post, breaking down some high school basketball. Kevin, we got the playoffs starting this coming week, next week I should say, and Monday and Tuesday. Looks like the public's on Monday, private's on Tuesday. So break us down here. Anybody really catching your eye as a team to watch here that can maybe make a run out of one of those maybe 3 to 6 seeds, somebody that could surprise in the first round and maybe make a deep run?
Well, you look at Group 4. If you want to kind of break it down, you look at Group 4, and I think I don't think there's a team that's a middle of the road to a back end seed that's going to get through in that group. I think in 4, I think you're looking at the higher seeds really taking care of things and getting there. I really like Shawnee in Group 4. I think they come in at the 2 seed. They're playing tremendous basketball, 24-2. They've got kids, and they're still, when you look at the age of the team, they're still very young. They start an awful lot of juniors, so they're a team that has really come on, has played extremely well all season. 2 losses by 5 points, and obviously a team that really knows how to win with one of South Jersey's all-time coaches in Joe Kessler. And like we talked about last week, I think Atlantic City comes in as a 5 seed, but they have the possibility, if playing well and if they can not make crucial mistakes, I guess, I think that's a team that could potentially get to the final. But I think, if they can beat Eastern for a second time and then probably have to hit the road to Cherokee, that's not going to be easy for them. In Group 3, I guess, you look at the larger seeds, and I think, here again, I think that the teams that are seeded higher are the teams to keep an eye on. I think a team like an Ocean City at 3, I think the way the bracket lines up, they could get to the semifinals, and they'd have to run. I think they run into a Highland team that's kind of struggled lately, and maybe had played so well so soon that never really had that lull that some teams get and were able to rebound from. They had a lull a little bit late. So, I think Highland can regroup. It's tournament time. They've been there last year, and they're a team that can get to the final in 3. And I think on the other side of the bracket, I think Mainland is a team that could potentially get to the final as well. I think, if the brackets, they win their home game against Camden Tech, they'll get another home game, I think, against Delsea. So I think Mainland is a team to keep an eye on in 3. And you want me to keep going?
I'll tell you. Let me throw something out here for you. A little shake up in South Jersey Group 3. Pemberton in the second round taking down Highland. That's the Sully upset special right there.
That's the upset special.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, Pemberton.
They're a nice team. I saw them in the opening weekend.
Pemberton is the defending Central Jersey Group 3 team. This year they get moved into the South Jersey bracket. They're a team that has had some ups and downs all season. They're going to come into this tournament. I don't think they are clearly. They're not as good overall as they were last year. They're going to come into this tournament at 12-14. They won their last 2, but prior to that they had lost 5 straight. So they're a team that if they're running on all cylinders and Jordan Heck is hitting threes and Shawnee's Blackman is playing as well as he has been, Pemberton's a team that as a 7 seed could get there. And if Highland doesn't get its act together, then there's no reason why Pemberton doesn't stand a chance. So, all right, I will jot that down as Sully's upset special, and if that happens, then all credit will go to you.
All right, and another team in South Jersey Group 3 who I was telling you about earlier this season, you weren't buying in, but Winslow, my boy Wayne Nelson up there, former Cedar Creek coach, they're the 8 seed, man. They could run up there and maybe knock off Central Regional in the second round.
I saw Winslow play the other night, and they're coming in. They come into this. Here's a Winslow team. You look at them. That's a program that's the defending sectional champion, played in the state final last year. But they don't have very many holdovers from last year that had significant playing time. Sidney Brown played a lot, probably the most out of any kid on that team this year in last year's run. But they do have a kid in Jordan Herron, transferred from St. Joe's via Woodbury, and he's a kid who's kind of sparked them since he's became eligible. I guess he's played maybe in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 games. And, Winslow had won Winslow had won 6 straight going into last night, and they lose to Paul VI by 2. So, Winslow is a team, when I watched them, at first I was like a little shaky with what I was seeing because I was seeing a lot of sloppy ball. But, they went into Washington Township, and that's a decent team, and they come out with a W. So, I think, in 3, to be quite honest, I think 3 is not the strongest section of the 4 public school sections, but you catch a little fire in the tournament, and you start building some momentum. Upsets happen. So I think Winslow is a possibility. Winslow could get to a semifinal again, and then maybe they run into Mainland. So I don't know who you would choose at that point. Do you choose your allegiance to your pal, Wayne Nelson, or do you stick with Mainland?
My boy Oshun, and Savage and the boys.
So I don't know what you're going to. When that game comes up, you should be sitting press row, front row, because
there you go.
That's your boys. They're your boys.
I'll tell you what, that could be one of the most fun brackets to watch. I mean, I think there could be a lot of topsy-turvy stuff going on in that bracket.
Yeah, 3, like I said, when I look at 3, I just look at kind of the most wide open of any group, and I think in 3 maybe we're going to see more of the upsets as far as the games won and lost based on seeding than any other group.
How about in Group 2 real quick? Is that Camden's to lose? I mean, can any of those other top 5 teams maybe make a run there?
If Camden loses in 2, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is a team. This is a program that has gone to 4 straight state finals, and has come up empty each one. And last year's was the worst of the 4 of them because they had an 18-point lead in the second half.
Wow.
10-point lead going into the fourth quarter. So, this is a Camden team that's, it's got some juniors on it, but it's got some seniors on it, and these kids have all been there. They've all been there, and when that Camden team is together and playing on all cylinders, they are among the best in South Jersey. But then you look around and you see a loss in there that you shake your head and what happened. That Camden team starting with West Deptford at 4:00 on Monday, has got to put its foot on the pedal and never take it off. Because if they take their foot off the pedal, they're liable to fall somewhere along the line. And I don't know. Maybe it's the final. I think Haddonfield can get to the final on the other side of the bracket. And I think there's a dangerous team right now. They were extremely inconsistent at the beginning of the season. Is Middle Township. But Jalen Freeman is on that team now. They've elevated their game. They're playing much better now than they certainly did at the beginning of the season, and they're a 14 seed. So Middle's going to have to win everything on the road, but I think Middle is a team right now that, in that particular side of the bracket, and 2, I can see Middle getting to the semifinals, and I think I can see Middle getting to a game against Haddonfield and pulling the upset. So,
the Minnick upset special, 14 seeded Middle.
I think Middle. I think if you look at this group, obviously when the cutoff date came, Middle was in a very difficult situation, and they end up getting the 14 seed. But I think Middle, if you look for a team that you would say is a quote unquote dark horse or a team that could potentially do something, is Middle. They've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They won 7 of their last 8 games if my stats are right. So they're a team that obviously is now coming into the tournament playing its best basketball. So, if you look for an upset, I think, Middle is based on seeding. Take Middle. I think Middle can get to this. I think Middle gets to at least to the semifinals.
Good stuff as always, Kevin. Man, you're on your A game today.
Sully, I am.
You're in playoff mode.
All your wrestling fans, they're right now in regional mode. I can't be in regional mode. I am now in basketball almost to my sectional mode. So we're ready. This is the time everybody plays for. This is the time where you have to bring your game and you have to prove yourself. Because if you don't prove yourself, then you know what? It's all for naught. So
winner go home, baby.
Winner go home, and I'll throw you one more team in the publics. I like Woodbury in Group 1.
Nice.
So I'm going to throw you Shawnee in 4. I'm going to throw you Highland in 3. I'm going to throw you Camden in 2, and Woodbury in 1. And I think St. Augustine in non-public A has a very, very good chance to defend their title. And in B, I think the Patrick School will pretty much get to the finals.
Good stuff. As always, man, we got to get to your boy Tribble, so we're going to let you go here, Kev.
Hey, give Tribble his wrestling time.
You got it, man. Have a good weekend, bud.
Hey, you too. We'll see you later on.
Thanks, Kev.
All righty.
That was Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post. We got to take a